is sponsored by the Oakland Education Association, and also we would like to thank our co-sponsors, the United Teachers of Richmond, the Berkeley Federation of Teachers, the United Educators of San Francisco, the Peralta Federation of Teachers, and the United Teachers of Los Angeles. And also I'd like to acknowledge we have Walmart workers here organizing that's also supporting the event. And also we appreciate all of the House of Labor represented today and our community partners and parents. Thank you. One announcement, we are, well, first of all, raise your hand if you did not sign in, please. So if you did not sign in, raise your hand. We are circulating a sign-in sheet for future events and campaigns, so that information will be held by the Oakland Education Association. So please make sure that you sign in. So we're here today to learn lessons from our brothers and sisters, from our sisters from the red and purple states. And as we know, this past spring, teachers and other school workers in right-to-work states organized together, and they struck for more education funding, and they had major confrontations with their state governments, and they won unprecedented gains. And we're here as representatives of California, so-called blue state with collective bargaining rights. We're here to learn lessons so that we can unite with our community, stand together, and take more collective direct action to be able to fully fund and have the schools that our students deserve.
As I said earlier, my name is Arlene Inoue, and I'm so pleased to be here from Los Angeles, where we have transformed union leadership for the past 4 years to be an organizing union around the schools our students deserve. So we've been in a contract fight for around 14 months. We feel like it's coming to a head. We just got a new superintendent who is an investment banker, and he comes with 0 educational experience. And he is already showing us by something he put out last week that he's going for austerity. He's saying there's no money to pay for, pensions, health care. We're going to have to increase class size, even though California is 48th in the nation in class sizes. It looks pretty bad. So we're pretty certain that we will not have an agreement. We're far apart on salary as well. They put forward 2% on the table. We've asked for 6.5%. And we believe that we will go into impasse and probably call a strike vote in September. So I gotta say that one of the things I've noticed is that, what we experience in California, I believe, is apathy, right? In trying to turn around the union, we've had a lot of successes, but it's also still hard because a lot of our members say, what are you gonna do for me? Or why should I, join the union? And in this time of Janus, it's particularly challenging. But we've, this individualistic approach, to our society. We're fighting against that. But I've learned that, that our members have been very inspired. And I want to thank Nicole, Rebecca, Tia, and Barbara, because they, now, when they hear strike, it's not like a unknown thing or a big deal. It's like, yeah, we're a part of a national movement here, sweeping the nation. And we're fighting. We're fighting hard for our dignity and respect, the salaries that we should be getting, receiving, the benefits that we need to be receiving as well, along with fighting for our students and issues of class size, issues of local control, issues of a business model with all the testing. So these are the fights that we're engaged in, and that we're looking to not only the district, because we have a $1.7 billion reserve that we're saying use that for the schools, but we know our fight is with the state, and we have a measure called Schools and Communities First that we'll share a little bit more about. And we propose 20 by 20. And 20 by 20 means we want California, which is the 5th richest economy in the world, to be up there in our commitment and our investment in public schools. So we're asking for $20,000, like New York, Connecticut, Vermont, some of the other states, $20,000 by the year 2020, instead of being 46th in the nation.
Thank you, Arlene. And in Oakland, we have declared impasse. We have been in bargaining for 18 months, and we are fighting for lower class sizes, and we're fighting for compensation to keep our teachers and educators in Oakland. We're also fighting to have our students served with counseling services so we can have safe schools. And we do have money to settle the contract. However, many of you may have seen a recent report that came out about how charter schools are taking over $57 million from our district, and that money could be going to lower class sizes. And today in this forum, we have a lot of opportunities as far as to coordinate as educators across the state and look at our sisters to lead the way for some direct action to prepare for a strike to win the schools that our students deserve. And one last point about the Schools and Communities First initiative. In the back, there are petitions by the League of Women Voters, and we'll speak more about that, but that's also an initiative that will close tax loopholes so that we can better fund our public schools.
It will bring $5 billion into public education, and it's by reforming Proposition 13, which for 40 years we've had this unfair property taxation, and it's time that we close the loopholes and address the largest corporations who in many cases are paying no property taxes, like Exxon, you know, and places like Disneyland. We have a lot of wealth in our state, so there are petitions that we have it again in the back that you can sign afterwards. We're looking to put it on the ballot in the year 2020. So it's very important because that's one of the biggest ways we can start funding public schools. So we appreciate your support on that.
Thank you. Now we move on to our presentations. Each state represented will make a 15-minute presentation, and the planning committee asked the speakers the following questions. What were you fighting for? How did you organize to fight for it? What role did the local and state unions play? What did you win? and what did you not win? What are your next steps and why? And what lessons did you learn that could be applied in California and elsewhere? There are Q&A cards that are being distributed. Please write your questions on the cards, and after the Q&A starts, we'll collect them and ask our guests the questions.
So I'd like to introduce the speakers. We're going to be starting with West Virginia, and that's Nicole McCormick. She's a K-5 music teacher and a mother of 4, all under the age of 8. To me, that's amazing. And she's president-elect of the Mercer County Education Association in West Virginia. And then also to my left is Rebecca Gorelli. She's a middle school math and science educator and lead organizer for Educators United, the rank and file network that led the recent Arizona teacher strike. And I gotta add, she's the mother of 3 small children. So, power to you. And to my right, I have first Teal Edison, middle school teacher in Jefferson County, Kentucky, and a member of the executive board of the Jefferson County Teachers Association, as well as chair of the union's Black Caucus. She's also the executive board member of the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression and co-chairs the Kentucky chapter of Jobs with Justice. And also Barbara Boyd, also from Kentucky, is a recently retired elementary teacher from the Jefferson County, Kentucky. She served as regional director with the Jefferson County Teachers Association. Currently, Barbara chairs the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression, and under its umbrella, also chairs the Community Education Coalition and Kentucky Mobilization. So we're so pleased to have all of our speakers. So what we're going to do is now start with West Virginia. We're going to give them 15 minutes. Each of them have a portion of time, and then we'll take the questions and answers afterwards. So we'll start with you, Nicole.
I made some notes so I wouldn't forget that I wanted to speak with you about. So what were we fighting for? We were fighting for PEIA, which is the Public Employees Insurance Agency that all West Virginia public employees are covered under. There is no other option unless your spouse has an opportunity to take on something else. They don't work for the state of West Virginia. And we were also fighting for a salary increase for all public employees. And that would be, you know, our cooks, our bus drivers, our state road workers, our DHHR workers, everyone. And the reason that it became so dire that we fought for this was because that over the past several years, our healthcare costs have ballooned. And our pay, we get yearly salary increases, but they've been so minimal that they haven't even kept up with inflation, let alone the rising healthcare costs. So we really have taken a pay cut for the last 3 years. So PEIA has a board that is, the governor says who's on it. And the main guy, his name is Ted Cheatham, and he makes like $144,000 a year. And so every year, PEIA in like October rolls out how that they're going to get their money for the next year, how they're going to meet their budget. Our state legislature, by code, covers 80% of the cost that goes into PEIA up front, and then the employees are supposed to cover 20%. And our legislature hadn't been funding it to the way that there was money in there that could cover the rising, ballooning cost. So when they rolled out their new way of getting their money, they cut down the tiers, so the people that were making the most money were actually going to start paying less for their health care costs, and the people that were at the bottom were going to be bumped up to pay more. And it was going to be based upon your household income, not just a set fee or based upon the primary's income. And they would even take into account your children that you had working in the home. So if you had a kid that had a side job at a gas station, they would take that into account as well. And I think not that that wasn't, bad enough, and your premiums were going to go up several $100s a month, and your co-pays were going to go up, and your medication costs were going to go up. But on top of that, they decided they were going to do this program called Go 365. And it was a punitive program. Basically, you had to document your steps and your weight, and if you had chronic illnesses and things like that, and if you didn't meet a certain quota, a certain criteria of participation, they would kind of fine you with an extra $500 a year. But hey, you could get gift cards to Amazon if you worked really hard. So it was very much like dangling treats in front of us and expecting us to do tricks. So that was the reason. That was what we were fighting for, was to make sure that people could afford their health care, could take care of themselves, and could continue serving the state, and that they could actually get a salary that would get them out of having to go to food banks at the end of the month. So how did we organize to fight for it? This was completely rank and file, ground up driven. Our unions did not say anything really until that it was late in the game. Myself, I did not create the Facebook group, but I am a moderator of it. We have a secret Facebook group called West Virginia Public Employees United. In September of this just past year, there might have been 30 people on it. And then when the word started getting out about PEIA and how bad it was, the numbers just exploded. We have about 20,000 teachers in West Virginia. We have a very small population. There's about 1.8 million in the entire state of West Virginia. And that went from 30 people to 400 to 1,500 to now 24,000. And people use this platform to share not only their anger and frustration, but their action. So if they decided that they were going to ask their members in the school, and non-members as well, and across organizational lines, to wear red on Friday, they would take pictures and post it. And so other people would say, hey, they did it, we can do it. Or they would have informational pickets, or we would have town halls where we would invite our legislators. So this secret Facebook group was the means to share all of this action and to become inspired. And not only to share it there, where that you were only reaching people within there, but we encourage people, hey, if you like something, take a screenshot of it. Just be thoughtful and take the name off of it if they don't feel comfortable with that, and share it on your own page. Talk about it with your local association. So our organization online translated into working outside, alongside, and inside our associations. And we made sure to reach across, because in West Virginia, we don't have bargaining rights. And it's supposedly illegal to strike. And you can be a member or not, it doesn't matter, of either WVEA, which is under NEA, AFTWV, which is under AFT, or something called the WVSSPA, West Virginia State Service Personnel Association. So we reached out across those lines. Before, they were just competing for membership. And we said, your issues are our issues. How can we work together to make sure that we're heard and not ignored? The next question is, what role did the local and state unions play? At first, not much. We organized on our own, we became mad, and we looked back through the group and we found out that on January the 6th was the first time that somebody mentioned strike publicly. And it was, I can't even remember her name, it was a teacher from somewhere in the state, and she said, I think it's about damn time we strike. And everybody was like, oh yeah, it is. But with saying that, whenever that people went back to their locals the unions were a part of it. In my county, I'm in southern West Virginia. I'm on the border of Virginia. If you've ever heard of the Virginia Tech Hokies, I'm about an hour from there. You can drive 5 minutes and be across the Virginia border. But we have a very strong structure in place. We have officers, we have building reps, we have monthly meetings. So we took what we saw online and brought it back to our union and said, we need to be doing this. How are we going to make this happen? And so it was basically just pushing, which is our job, the union in the direction that we want. You know, we are the union. We are the union bosses. It's not up to them to tell us what to do. We tell them what to do. They serve us. And eventually, the unions got on board and said, well, I guess we're going to have to start working with the other associations as well. And so they had, we took a vote as an entire state, as all people, all teachers and service professionals working in the building across lines, we voted on to walk out. And everyone had a voice, and everyone was important, and non-members were included as well because they're part of it. And you know, you need them on the line too, and if they decide to join your organization, great, but if they're being active and alongside you, then that's wonderful too. And we took the vote, the union counted it, they met together and they said, we have, you know, the percentage we need to authorize it, and they publicly said that out. If you don't get yourselves together talking about our state legislature, then we're going to walk on these days. So they became, you know, not the only voice, but they became, you know, our voice. They started speaking for the most part, and what we wanted them to say. The next question is, what did you win, and what did you not? We won a 5% across the board for all public employees raise, which is something we really pushed. Our governor, Governor Jim Justice, is the wealthiest person in West Virginia. And yeah, that's always how it works. And he, in his State of the State address, he said, I think this year we can give you a 1% raise. And everybody's like, boo, hiss. We're already upset about PEIA. You're just, you know, encouraging us further to be even more ticked off. So, you know, initially they're offering small, which 5% is nothing. When you're making $40,000 a year after you've been working for 10 years, it's nothing. And even more so, and this is just an important note because I think sometimes we forget how important that service personnel are. A starting head cook in a neighboring county, the person that's responsible for feeding our children makes $19,000 a year. That's not okay, and that's not any way to live. I digress. So our union somehow made this deal with that we were going to go back on good faith, and we were going to accept a smaller percentage. And that's when that we said absolutely not. And we had that power because not only of the anger, but of the communication. You know, we were using every platform possible to say, you know, we are the ones that are making the decisions. And so we didn't go back. And even though something that we didn't get was a permanent, already in the books fix to PEIA, we did get the 5% raise for all public employees, which is incredibly important. If you alienate people, you're alienating your community, and you are not going to be as strong as you are when you work together. We did get a PEIA task force, and initially there wasn't a single woman or a single teacher on the committee, and we fought that, and now we have a greater representation of our communities. And we went from having just a handful of meetings across the entire state to having ones that every single person could get to within a 45-minute drive. And we pushed those things by saying, this is important. You know, we went back with the pay raise signed in and the understanding that we're going to get our health care fixed for everyone. And so those PEIA hearings are almost complete. They're going to finish up next week. This is, what are your next steps and why, is the next question. We are beginning, you know, you learn by doing. And so the first thing that we did is we made sure that we told people how important it was to show up at those PEIA task force hearings, to live stream them, to ask hard questions about revenue, about how that healthcare decisions were made, if there were HIPAA violations because non-medical staff was making medical decisions. You know, we made sure that we put a document on our Facebook page and said, here are some information, and here's some revenue sources, and here's data. Please use this to support your questions, your concerns. And we also created a petition about increasing the gas severance tax and about taking the corporate business tax to what it was and about how much money that could raise, and use data to support that. So we tried to make sure that there was representation in every single meeting. We've also had our first in-person West Virginia Public Employees meeting. We had that a few weeks ago, and it was quite successful for the first meeting. We had people that were pipe fitters, healthcare workers, friendly legislators, teachers, bus drivers, retired, current, and they were from all over the state, the tippy top to the bottom. And even though that we were a relatively small group, I think we had somewhere around 30 people, that was still 30 voices that were able to communicate in person, and that will hopefully continue the conversation and encourage more people. We made everything very transparent. We let our unions know what we were going to do, that we were not trying to replace them, and they were welcome to come, but they did not have a voice in it. They could speak like everyone else could. They were not in charge because we didn't want to promote one organization over the other. And we have people from multi-organizations and no organization that participate in this. So, you know, we are trying. We are trying to keep up that conversation with everyone that we possibly can. We're trying to keep up the communication, setting goals for action. And we are trying to spread ideas and let people come up with their own ideas and take those back to their communities and work outside, inside, and alongside their organizations. Okay, the last one is what lessons did you learn that could be applied in California and elsewhere? I would suggest to California that something that worked for us, and I know that we have a vastly different population and that you have bargaining rights, is I would direct some of your action toward the state as well. The state, and hopefully my numbers are correct, but I think in California 90% of district funds come from the state. And so if you need better classroom conditions, more funding, all of those things, then as the rank and file, you can get together and go to your state and demand that. That can be your umbrella that your districts fall under. They can set at least a minimum standard. And, you know, please don't forget to reach out to everyone. You're classified and you're certified. We need to view ourselves as educators, even though that we're educated, that we are working class. So please make sure that you reach out to everyone.
So much, Nicole. Great lesson. And now we're going to move to Kentucky, and we have Tia and Barbara who are going to share.
Good afternoon, everyone. So in Kentucky, we were fighting for our pensions. And let me go, we were fighting for the governor to pay his part of our pension. We pay our part, the state's supposed to pay their part. So let me tell you how we got into the problem. While we were a blue state, and over 10 years ago, when we had the money held, it was in some stocks and some bonds or whatever. And so when the stock market was doing really, really well, that little money in the pot was 250%. So we had plenty of money for the pensions. So the governor at the time asked if he could use some of those monies, extra money for different little programs on the backs of we're not going to raise taxes. So our leadership decided that that was a good idea and went on and let them borrow, not just once. I think this happened 2 or 3 or 4 years in a row. So it wasn't bad until the stock market dropped. And then all of the money just got depleted. So we didn't have enough now to fund the retirees and the future retirees. So fast forward to, that was when we was a blue state, we now got a Tea Party governor come in, and he seen the mess that was created, and he was like, I'm not paying that back. Sorry, but that's not my problem. And so, of course, we were in a panic. What are we gonna do? We don't have enough money. And so not only did he say he's not gonna pay it back, he suggested that everybody as the teachers should go into a 401k. Instead of this defined benefit, you can switch it over to defined contributions. So of course we were upset with that, and we kept on saying a pension is a promise. You know, that was our platform, like, you promised us this pension, now you need to fund it. So we were fighting for the pension, we were fighting for the budget and the revenue, because if you can't find the money, then find the money. Like, we gave them all kinds of suggestions, gambling, marijuana, whatever. Like, we need you to find some funding. So fast forward to March 29th, I believe it was a Thursday before spring break. Most of the state is on the same spring break. Well, they had tried to pass it in the education committee, and we had enough people, we were lobbying enough Republicans and Democrats that they would not let it come out of the committee. So we had won once and twice. So while this was going on, there was a couple of groups forming in social media that were like, this is what they're doing, can you believe that? And so we started to get some more active members, you know, joining these groups. This was not a part of the union. This was its own entity, and it was called Kentucky 120 Strong. So we passed, we successfully didn't get it out of the committee twice. Then they decided at the last hour, almost the last day of the session, to change a sewer bill, take everything out of the sewer bill, add 296 pages of a pension, and it came out of that committee, which was the state and some kind of government committee. Then it went through the House and it went through the Senate, and it was passed. So that night, I mean, it was, I wish everybody could have seen it on the news, like, the Capitol was just red. And it was teachers screaming on the outside, because we could not believe this was happening on the last hour, almost the last day of legislation, and they were passing it through a sewer bill. I mean, to be so disrespectful at that. So all of that happened, and as this was going on, I mean, by this time, we had like 40,000 members in this Facebook group called the Kentucky 120. So at that time, basically, it was a person that wasn't even a teacher. They were support staff in a rural county, and they had been up there lobbying, and they were kind of the face of the group they called the Wildcat. And so that was on a Thursday night. So for like one county went, and then social media was going. So we said, oh my goodness, Lexington just fell. And then they just fell, and they just fell, and we was organizing within ourselves. So that's how that Wildcat happened, through social media. I only got a few more minutes, so I wanna go through some solutions, or what went right, and how California can learn. So one of the lessons, well, our next step was we're gonna remember in November. We are gonna remember all of the legislators that passed these budget bills, passed the revenue bills, passed the pension bill, was on our side and was not on our side. But I will say, as a union, they were not the ones that called it, because we are in a right to work state. And we do not even have collective bargaining agreements. So the union technically could not tell us to go on strike, that was against the law or whatever. So it was the rank and file that made this happen through social media, through organizations of groups. And I know Arizona will tell you they did it too perfectly. But to engage our members, right now we are trying so hard to keep our members engaged, keep them involved. And through these groups and even, just doing active things out in the community, because we have got to use this energy and we have to capitalize on it, because next year is not going to be any better. It's just going to be another issue that's going to come up. I think that we need to definitely start asking all these legislators, Republican, nonpartisan. It don't matter if they're Republican or Democrat. What are your issues on whatever you're dealing with in your community? We have a lot of gang bills, and it was very divisive, and it didn't work out good. They got it passed because we didn't get members involved and members around it to help us engage our legislators on it. Let's see. I'm trying to get everything together, but I only had a small amount of time. I would say that social media was a great way to assimilate information, to create dialogue amongst our members. We got to keep the members engaged, and as leaders, whoever your union leaders are, they got to understand what the members want. They've got to understand what the community wants. The union leaders need to go have coffee and community conversations with the people in the community. Because if not, this is the intersectionality. We are public servants. We are supposed to be serving the community and the kids. And it's not just about our own personal. What I saw was that teachers are about their own personal economic interest. But when it comes to like a gang bill, something that affects the kids in our community, it's time, they don't like to talk about that. So I think we need to try to really force ourselves to keep it intersectional and make sure that those special interest groups are included. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barbara Boyd, and I'm just going to piggyback on some of the comments that Tia made. We were fighting for our pension. A pension is a promise, and the governor wanted to change a promise to a 401k plan. He wanted to do it for all teachers. And the way we organized, we started having rallies. We had our state organization come in from Frankfort, Kentucky. We marched in Central Park. We spoke on platforms. We encouraged parents to come out and speak at the bi-weekly Board of Education. And more people started speaking up. We were fighting for public education in a sense because the governor, who was a Tea Party governor, thought he could just come in and make the decisions without the people. And we went to Frankfurt during the legislative session. He was rude to us. He locked us out. He wouldn't let us come in to any of the committee meetings. We couldn't speak. So teachers started organizing, standing in the hallway of the State House. And when the legislature, when the House and Senate members would go through, there's a little tunnel that goes from the rotunda and the meeting rooms to the Capitol. Teachers started holding up posters with what we were fighting for on it. The role that the state and local unions played was organizing the teachers, letting them know, this is your pension. What are you going to do when you retire? If you change it now to a 401k, what is that going to look like? So the teachers started going, the state capitol, where teachers had to be in the classroom. And then the teachers were meeting with various social justice organizations, NAACP, Urban League, the Kentucky Alliance Against Racism and Political Repression, to get the word out that we had them. The Kentucky Alliance has a weekly radio program, and we started bringing the author of A Pension is a Promise and teachers to talk about what was at stake here. And through it all, when you ask what did we win, I believe that the retired teachers had some gains because we didn't lose our pension. However, we did lose a cost of living increase. I think instead of yearly, it's every 2 years or whatever, but we're not through fighting. I do want to say that. The teachers that are currently working, they keep their pension. However, new hires come in on a 401k. And, you know, we've got a hedge fund governor, a hedge fund businessman as a governor. And I know he wants to play with that money. He wants to play with the stocks and all of that. So they, in essence, lost. And then we have a lot of teachers that are retiring. They don't want to be in the profession anymore. So that is a loss. And then, you know, what are our next steps? Our next steps, did you guys hear me before? Yeah. Our next steps are to continue the fight. When Tia was saying that we will remember in November, we will. And we had a primary election in May, and some teachers won. I believe we have teachers that will be going to the city. We have teachers that campaign for Metro Council for the city. But, you know, the governor is taking his playbook straight from Trump. And, you know, they are putting more and more on us. Our district now, in a form of retaliation, is under attack. The governor appointed the commissioner, ran the old commissioner out, appointed 12 members to the State Board of Education that would do anything he asked them to do. So the fight is still on. So the lessons that we've learned is that we can't give up. We have to keep fighting the good fight. We have to join forces with organizations like those represented here so that this will be a national movement. And I believe there's strength in numbers, and together we will. I still have a minute left. And I wanted to say that we have, the Kentucky Alliance has a people's agenda that meets every Sunday from 1 to 3 o'clock. And we invite people to come in, and so that we can give them information about what's going on with the public school district. The governor is trying to bring charter schools into our community. We've never had charter schools before. So we are out organizing, going door to door to make people aware of what's at stake. Because if they take the money from the public education system and give it to the charter schools, what's that going to do for our kids? We're not going to have them cherry pick our kids, and we're not going to fight. We're not going to stop. We're going to keep fighting.
Thank you, Barbara and Tia. And now we move to Arizona and have Rebecca speak for us.
So, Arizona, we have many problems, so I'll just give you a snapshot. We are at the bottom of the barrel in funding for at least 3 or 4 different categories. We are last in teacher pay. So what that means is teachers are hemorrhaging from our state and moving to neighboring states so they can make 10 to 20 grand more. What that trickles down to means there are 2,000 teaching vacancies in our state, which means we can withhold our labor and nobody can do anything about it. So that was one of our strengths, right? It's a huge problem, but it actually helped us in our movement, right? It was a tactic. So we are low in pay, and similar to West Virginia, we have had $1.1 billion cut from our K-12 funding pot since 2008 that has not been restored. Even though the economy is recovered, the governor claims our economy is booming, we are missing $1.1 billion. And everybody knows that that also trickles down, and that's resources and counselors and nurses and buses and M&O and everything, right, comes from that bucket of money. So our class size is also almost last in the nation. I think we're 48th or 49th. Our class size is bad. Per pupil funding, we're at the bottom of the barrel in the nation also. And our counselor to student ratio is about 900 to 1. Yes. So Arizona has a lot to fight for. So we actually had 5 demands. We demanded a 20% teacher increase. We also demanded competitive wages for all workers, just like our West Virginia brothers and sisters did. We asked for a moratorium on tax cuts. We said stop or we're walking out. We also asked, basically flat out, for funding levels to be restored to the 2008 levels. Just to 2008. We didn't ask for any more, just put it back. So that's just a little bit of a snapshot. And within those demands, of course, comes class size and counselors. If you can restore funds back to 2008, we could bend some of those holes. So we also are ground zero for Koch brothers money. We are ground zero for charter schools, ground zero for privatization, ground zero for public funding, the defunding of public education. So Arizona is a disaster for education. Teachers there, and I just moved there in July. I'm a former Chicago Teachers Union member and went on strike back in 2012. So I sort of felt a calling to do this. For some reason, I was there at the right time. And I knew what to do. I have gone through it before in Chicago, and Chicago did a wonderful job of an escalation process. And that's what we did in Arizona, is that we created a very highly structured and organized system in 8 weeks. And how we did it, and I'll go on to the next question, is we basically started with a Facebook page, because I was on your page for a while and learned what to do, and I was in Oklahoma's page for a little while, and so I made the Arizona page, and we had a Twitter account also, and so we used both platforms to organize. Within 3-4 days, we had thousands of people. Within 3 weeks, we had 50,000. We're at 55,000 people right now. Yeah, so it took off. People were wanting this to happen. We had learned from our amazing, West Virginians that we could do it in a right-to-work state, and ours is very deep red. And you were the catalyst that started the fire, so thank you. And so here's what we did. I had learned in Chicago that you have to have a network, and we set up site liaisons, which are basically representatives in every single site across the state. We asked people to volunteer. We asked them to sign up on a Google form with their information and to organize their sites. We right now have 2,000 site liaisons that we can call upon at any time. So we started at the sites, and then we asked them to do actions. And everybody wanted to strike right away, and we said, you know what? Let's see if you can do these little actions first. Because you can't do a big job action unless you can do smaller actions, right? It's just logical. So we said, okay, wear your red shirts on Wednesdays, Red for Ed Wednesdays. Then take pictures with your groups at your school and people started to realize, just like you guys did, wow, I'm not alone. I am among my people, and there's a lot of us. And so the visual representation on social media, I cannot stress how important that is. We would do Facebook videos where I would model an action, and I say, here's what you're gonna do. Step 1, step 2, step 3, go do it. And people did it, and they posted pictures, and they posted videos. So we started small with t-shirts, then take pictures with posters, and tell us why you're ready for ed. Give us 3 reasons. Why are you fighting for public education? Tell your story. Put those pictures on social media. And then our media, our news outlets, picked up on everything we did. And we were in the media, we're still in the media, and it's been almost 3 months. We are still holding the news cycle all the time. And so then we escalated. Then we worked on community events where we asked people to self-organize, and we got car window markers and painted our cars with facts about the problems in Arizona so that when anybody drives anywhere, they can see what is happening, and it worked like magic. We had mobile advertising throughout the entire state, even out in the reservations had painted cars. It was amazing. And so then we did small actions. We protested when the governor was talking on the radio station. We had hundreds of people down there outside the radio station. Then we did a rally where we told the governor what our demands were in person on the news, right? We had 6,000 people down there. Then we did walk-ins, and we basically set goals and said, okay, you guys all want to strike, you all want to walk out, prove to us that you are ready to do so by clocking attendance at every single walk-in. So we created a link for every single site, and we said once we got 1,000 schools walking in, we can have 1,000 schools walking out. And we had 1,200 some walking in, and we said, okay, we took a strike authorization vote that the union actually helped us with, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but we did a real union vote, and whether you were a member or not, you got to vote. And it turned out we had 80% of people who said we wanted to walk out, so we walked out. Yep. And we actually did training for our liaisons. Anytime we asked them to do an action, I would create a Google presentation, or I would do a Facebook video and say, here's what I want you to do, now go and turn and do. I did a train the trainer kind of thing and say, go do it. Worked beautifully. So if you're looking for ideas, that one's a keeper. So what role did the local and state? Well, our union president, so we have Arizona Education Association has the most membership, about 20,000 members. We have AFT, but they only have about 200 members. And we're right to work, but there's fuzzy language about whether or not it's illegal to strike, so we're doing it. So, ours is a very unique situation because we had learned from West Virginia and Kentucky and Oklahoma, honestly, about what to do and what not to do. And so our relationship was quite wonderful. We worked in a parallel fashion where on week 3 of our movement, the union came in and said, we're here to help, how can we help? And so they provided resources like Action Network so we can reach a broader range of an email system. They provided funding and signs and anything we needed to support us, they were there. And we actually are on leadership calls with them pretty much weekly now anyway. So they helped to fund our march, our massive march that you guys all saw. I mean, they worked with us every step of the way, knowing that we were driving the bus. It was a teacher-led, teacher-driven movement, and the union was alongside of us, providing resources, and it was reciprocal. So it was wonderful. So not only did we have site liaisons in every single school, we also had the union representatives, and sometimes they doubled up as being both a liaison and a union rep, and that's okay. So I don't want you to think that that wasn't part of it. It was. So let's see. Union presidents, we have locals, so we have many, many, many districts, and every district has their own local, and those presidents actually helped us get those members involved and said, hey, did you hear about this, and help with communication. What did we win? So we had 5 demands, and we really only got 1 of them, and kind of a partial of a second. So everybody thinks that we won 20%. It's not true. After we threatened to walk out, the governor came back and said, oh, okay, I was going to give you a 1% raise, but now I can find additional funds for an extra 9%, and I'll get you to 10% this year. Oh, that's magical, how'd you do that? So, great. So there was no dedicated funding source, right? He was gonna have to pull funds from other pots. And so he tried to take some from disabilities and all these other things that we need. And so we said, it's not good enough. We're not taking this, are you kidding me? No. So we said no. And we basically ended up, you know, when all is said and done, the dust settled, we ended up going from $60 million in the K-12 funding pot, and we boosted that to $400 million. That's the farthest any legislation has been pushed for K-12 funding in the history of Arizona. So that's just amazing. And so what that means is every district would get money for raises, but then the districts would have to decide who gets it. And one of our main talking points is that we are educators. We're not just teachers, we're counselors and nurses and cafeteria workers and classified and everybody. So what that did is create, you know, the governor said, I gave you money, talk to the district, it's on the district. So now he's trying to pit us against our districts. Well, all the teachers stepped up and said, well, we're going into our districts, we're negotiating, and people are showing up in droves now. And they are watching their districts, and that's another major win, is teachers who never went to board meetings before are showing up and saying something now. And that is huge. So, I think I have 3 minutes. So, we want some money. Most people are getting about a 10% raise. Different districts, of course, look differently because it went off of an average salary of $48,000. Well, if your district makes less or more, you're not getting adequate funding. So some districts will get more, some will get less. So either way, we're having conversations about raises. That's a win to me. Raises that were bigger than what the governor ever wanted to give us. So that's a win. Another win, our teachers have now become so politicized. They watched firsthand, they witnessed the legislature turn down every single amendment we had to help our kids, and they denied every single one of them. And teachers' jaws just hit the floor. I mean, people were just appalled at the way the legislature worked. And now they're awake. We have teachers running. Every single position now is filled with either a teacher running, there's no vacancies, someone is pitted against somebody else now, there's going to be opposition, and we're going to do a primary thing and a Remember in November thing. But primaries are in August for us, so we have tons of teachers going out there, we have tons of teachers on the ballots now, and so for us, that's a huge win. We're going to get pro-education people in there, and we're going to work as hard as we can. So our next move, we have pivoted to a ballot initiative, which is taxing the rich, if you want to say it that way. And if approved, it will be voter protected and will generate $690 million annually to go into directly the classroom site fund. We have to get 151,000 signatures by July 5th. So thank goodness we have our liaison network, because we phone banked them the other day and said, we need your help, get out there, help us out. Everybody turns in 10 sheets and we can do this. So we now, that network is so key to mobilizing people in the future. So lessons to be learned and applied in California. Charter schools, you guys, I'm with you. We all need to work together to figure that one out. I don't have a solution, but we included charter teachers in our movement because we know that a lot of them used to be public education teachers and only went there because of a bonus or a cute little benefit they didn't see at their locations. So we didn't exclude them. We're not pro-charter. We said, hey, we love teachers. If you were with us, okay, great, be with us. Another lesson is obviously withholding labor works. Even if it's the threat of it, right? Just the threat works. Educators have the power. Power comes from the people. The more people you have, the higher your membership, whether it's grassroots or in the union, the more power you're going to have, the more powerful your collective voice. Rank and file is the way to go. It's the way I mean, we would not be successful unless we were a grassroots movement and we worked outside of the union, but also with the union. So just keep that in mind.
Thank you. Let's give them a hand again for all of them. Okay, now we're going to take some time now for Q&A. So if you have any questions that you've written on the cards, we want to collect those and start with questions. But I just want to end this portion with bringing up something I heard Nicole say. She shared this with our local UTLA a couple of months ago. But she talked about how she said if it's possible in West Virginia, it's possible anywhere.
That's right.
And I feel like what our sisters have shared with us is, in many ways, what seems to have been the impossible, but they've showed us a pathway for how it works. And I think that's a huge encouragement to those of us in California. There's a lot of lessons that you've shared with us. And, you know, public education, it's so fitting because public education is such a cornerstone of our democracy. Every single child deserves a quality public education. And we know that charter schools have taken public school money and cherry-picked and decided which students they're going to take and not take. We know that's wrong. And so we have been positioned as public educators to be in every single community of this nation and have direct contacts with parents and community members. So it is so right that I think public educators, along with the public sector unions, are really leading this movement in this country. That our labor, we're rejuvenating the labor movement, and it's very exciting. And this is just the beginning. So we thank our sisters for their courage, for their inspiration, and for also just letting us know that we can do it too, because that's where we're going. So we've got some questions now. I've got one to start, and we'll have any of our panelists answer. The first one is, could you describe the relationship between the strike leaders and the official union structures?
Like I said before, that the action was spontaneous and, for lack of a better word, almost organic at the beginning. And I actually had our state president call me, and he said, I hear that you're saying the word strike. And I was like, yes, and my husband is too. And he was like, well, I don't know if that's a good idea. And I was like, well, I'm not the only one saying it. And so at first, I think there was this fear from our union leadership that we were either like trying to run them over or take control or trying to do something that was going to fail miserably and that it was going to make them look bad. And then when they saw that people were actually being active, they were actually standing up, they were being strong, they were doing those demonstrations of the red t-shirts for teachers and blue for service personnel and purple for Unity on Friday, and you know, just even those small displays, they saw that thousands of people were being active, then they got on board. And something that was said early in our meeting that is completely true is that, you know, we are the union bosses and we are the union, and it is up to us to push the direction in which our union goes.
so the next question is, what issues, I can't read that one. What issues raised? What issues faced by PARs classified were highlighted in your contract fight? What role did paras classified play in your struggle? So it's a classified paraprofessional question.
I'm sorry. If it weren't for our classified people, I don't know how successful we would have been. You know, they were the ones that said, you know, the wheels on the bus aren't going to turn, and I'm not making any food today. And they kept the schools closed. And something that one of my secretary friends said to me, and I've mentioned it before, but it's completely true. You know, if the secretary's gone, the whole school goes to hell, and they can't find a sub that can do it anyways. So please never forget in your struggle how important these folks are, and that we all have to work together to make sure our children are educated.
In our fight for a pension, it affected everybody. It affected the classroom teachers, the administrators, the cafeteria workers, the bus riders, firefighters, the city and state employees. So we all had something to gain or lose in our level of participation.
And I will also add that it was a classified person that called for our strike the very first time. And I don't know if it's because certified teachers were scared, but it was a classified. And once that did happen, it was the family resource staff that was making sure that the kids that didn't come to school, that they had food in their backpacks, and that they could come to the school and they could get some type of meal. So they were working, even though we were supposed to be striking, they went to the schools and they made sure that there was food there. So if the kids that in the neighborhood didn't have any kind of food or parents were gone, they could still come to the school.
And related to that was, how was community support organized? And how were they organized? And what was the effect of the support or lack of their organization?
Community support was done through outreach, through op-ed pieces, through press conferences, through calls of action, any and every means possible. Everybody was talking about it. We talked about it in the mornings on the way to work, and because it was a national movement, and then after we saw what West Virginia did, you know, it was like, that was a real eye-opener. You know, if West Virginia did it, you know, we could do it. And then ours was, like Tia was saying, I think teachers were really reluctant because, you know, teachers fit a certain mold. You don't, you know, push the envelope. You're always proper. You say the right thing. You know, you don't lose your cool because kids are watching you and they are learning from you. So you have a certain mold to a certain personification. But after we saw West Virginia, all bets were off. They got the red shirts, they went to Frankfurt, and they were ready to fight the good fight. And I think that teachers have a different look. Our governor tried to belittle us, because, and I include me, even though I'm retired, by calling us thugs and saying that we didn't care about the kids. And, you know, our governor went to the extent of saying that kids were being molested and doing drugs while we were in Frankfurt at the State House because they should have been at school. But you gotta remember, his kids don't go to public school. with all of that being said, I think teachers are wearing a new hat and they will never be as passive as they were before. So that's a win-win for us.
So I just wanted to jump in about community support because I'm in a little bit of a different ballgame in Arizona. We work very hard to do our walk-ins, and we had a whole month of April as Community Solidarity Month, where we asked people to hold walk-ins every Wednesday. They created leaflets and palm cards, and we gave them all the resources to reach out to their parents and communities and educate the public about what we were fighting for and why. We had asked people to self-organize at their local parks, recreation centers, or even church, if that's where your friends are, to get out and hold an event where you paint your cars together and you talk about the issues and actually have conversations with people. And that's where we really gained a lot of community support. We went out to businesses and we asked them to put up our Red for Ed signs, and the whole state was painted Red for Ed, the whole state. It was amazing. And that just took a little bit of modeling and saying, here's how I did this. I'd get on Facebook Live and I'd say, I went to a business and said, hey, would you mind putting up this sign? Let me tell you about why. And when people just see you doing it, and then they start to see these signs in their neighborhoods, they then turn and do it themselves. And that was the model we had in Arizona, and everything we asked them to do worked. And then we also had community partners coming to us and saying, we want to help you. We know this is a problem here. So we didn't have to seek out a lot of people. They came to us and said, we want to be with you. How can we help? So I think the visual presence with the car painting and the signs up, we were on the news all the time for our different creative actions, and everybody knew what was going on. The awareness is key, and that's why we were so successful in Arizona, and that's why we will continue to be successful, because we took the time, even though it was short, 8 weeks, we took the time to educate our communities instead of just wildcat one day. We took the time and did an escalation process, and it really, really helped us.
Okay, I'm going to combine a couple of questions since we're getting a lot more now. The question is, speak to the particular role and situation of people of color in the struggle, both as teachers and other workers and parents. And then another question was for the teachers from Kentucky. Could you speak a little more about the need for intersectionality in this movement?
Yes. So, as everyone was very upset about the pension, and everyone was on social media, and we were in our groups and we were talking, there was different groups like Kentucky Alliance and Black Lives Matter, and the gang bill was just getting no attention. And so as soon as we started mentioning, how do the teachers feel about, can you say, as long, you're going to call your legislator, you're going to tell them, say no to this and no to that and no to this, add the gang bill too. A lot of people got blocked. A lot of people were called divisive. And the relationships haven't mended. And so right now, our district is being taken over, and it could be retaliatory or a state takeover. The governor has called a state takeover, and the reason being is because of the gang bill. So the gang bill, the legislation says that the police can stop and frisk 3 or more people walking down the street. So with our kids and the demographics that we have, we're an urban, even though Kentucky, it don't sound, but in Louisville, it's an urban city. And our kids we are over-policed by the police, like certain communities are over-policed. And so this will directly affect the children that live in those areas. So I thought, and a lot of people thought that it was fitting for teachers, since you want to, or you say that you care about these kids, that you at least call until your legislators say no. But like I said, we were kicked out and we were called divisive. So at this point, our district now is being targeted because they have not done anything for the Black and brown kids. We have achievement gaps, we have high disproportion we're disproportionately suspended more, we're disproportionately arrested more, we're disproportionate, like all the things that we know the school to prison pipeline that's going on. Now the governor is using that to say we need to take over your district because you're not doing right. And now all of a sudden, our teachers and our union leadership is looking to us like, help us, we need buy-in from the community. But like I said 2 weeks ago, you didn't want to talk about the gang bill. Now all of a sudden, this district wants to come in and take over our district because we haven't been doing the black and brown kids right, and now you need our help. And in one of those meetings, the first thing that I said was, okay, union folks and community folks, the first thing that we need to do is admit that we haven't done a good job. And I got pushed back. No. The state takeover is about democratic process. And that we elect these school board members and it should be about that. And I'm like, but can we just at least admit it? And so it's still a struggle. I don't know if it's because of the state that we live in. They're not as progressive as I wish they would be, but we definitely need help on that.
Tia and I live in Louisville, Kentucky, you know, the home of the Kentucky Derby and Muhammad Ali. Jennifer Lawrence and Tom Cruise. And there's others, but anyway. There's an area in our city that's in the 40203 zip code, which is one of the poorest zip codes in the country. And in that area called Beach Terrace, 90% of the families have some kind of felony conviction. And they are, of course, people of color. So we are excluded. We can't go into the schools and participate with our kids because you got to fill out a paper, and the paper wants your criminal background. And if you have a felony, well, you could be with your child, but what about the other kids in the classroom? So we have the gang bill that Tia was talking about. That's to target us, target our kids. We also have SROs, which are school resource officers in the school, and they frisk our kids. Just think about, they abuse our kids. We even had a case where what you see on TV where the police officers are beating black folks, they're doing the same thing to our kids. So we want the school associations, the unions, to do something about that. They don't look at that, like Tia says, they want our help when they want to keep the state from taking over our school district, but yet still the way they treat our kids. And that's something that we have to work out, and we're working on it, and we are not going to back down about it. But it is really a problem.
Okay, we have a question about social media, and one is just, there's a question about how do you get access to your organizing materials, videos, Facebook pages, and then if it says, all of you mentioned using social media as an organizing tool. Were there efforts to keep social media groups to just rank and file? It can be a full-time job just to keep up with it. Were there multiple page administrators? Who ran the pages? Just a question about how you ran your social media strategy.
With ours, we have a secret group. So in order to be added, you have to be added by a current member. You can't find it just by a search. And it's called the West Virginia Public Employees United. And we have about 24,000 members on it. the page was began by 2 West Virginia teachers, both from different organizations, and I think we currently have about 10 moderators. And what those moderators do is they approve new requests. We look at the page of the person that's been suggested to be a new member, and if we can glean any type of information from them, you know, are they a public employee? Are they friendly to public employees? And it is a big job, and we try not to be too strict with our policing. We want people to have conversations and debates and feel like that is a space where they can share ideas. But we also try to encourage the people, we have a list of rules about, you know, not specifically targeting individuals. You can talk about ideas in that way, but you can't call somebody, you know, a nasty name. And we will message someone if we feel like they're kind of going off the rails and kind of say, hey, this is what we feel like you're doing that's inappropriate. And, you know, and like Tia, unfortunately, she was talking about that she was dismissed from a page by bringing up the gang bill. And that's something that I hope to goodness that I haven't participated in and that our moderators haven't, because we really tried to be as open and thoughtful as we can. But West Virginia is a red state, and it's very Trump heavy, and so we've tried to encourage people to stick to the issues, because Democrats and Republicans have both done things wrong, and they typically favor the wealthy over the poor. And so just logistically, if you're thinking about a page, just make sure that you have multiple individuals that can dedicate time to making sure there's no trolls on the page, or there's not misinformation, or people's trying to sell stuff, or, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, and reach out. If there's an issue that you feel like, not that you want to immediately kick someone off the page, but reach out to that person and say, we're having an issue with the way that you're discussing this because. You know, because you're personally attacking someone. And most of the time you can get feedback and they'll say, you know what, man, I was just angry, and they'll fix it. But sometimes too, you do have to kick people off the page because that they're being disrespectful to the other individuals on there.
I just want to add, because we have 55,000 members on ours, we have a whole team of people. There are 9 leaders, so 9 administrators, but we have a whole team of moderators that are screening all the pages that we have. We have one main page that we have for our main actions and updates, and we took the opportunity to create smaller pages, one we call the discussion hub, and that's where teachers can hash it out, right, in a respectful way. We set guidelines for that. We also set up a different page for, you know, swag and materials, because people are making t-shirts and stickers, and we didn't want all that stuff clogging our main page. When we have actions, we wanted people to get that information and go. So think about, if you are going to use it, think about the structures and the purpose of it first, and then realize within your main page you can also have smaller pages. And then what we did, and this has proved to be one of the best ideas we've had, every district has their own page within our main page. And so I'm an administrator on every single district. So if I need to get out and talk to a district, I can do it very easily. And now what we've even gone to now, we have main pages, we have district pages, now we have legislative district pages where people are having conversations about the candidates running on their own. We are nonpartisan, but the teachers are organizing within themselves, creating their own legislative conversations, and it has really, really worked out real well so far.
Question here. In addition to teachers running for state legislature, how do you think these strikes can develop into longer-term political movements or action?
So this is my major project of the summer right now. We are in a position in Arizona, and likewise with our brothers and sisters, that we talk all the time, people in all the different states. I hope you realize that. We're all connected now. Oklahoma, Kentucky, I talk to everybody talking. even North Carolina, Kristen Beller reached out to me like 2 months ago and said, I'm watching you guys. I said, great, come on in. So our group is closed, but you can come in if you want to. Just tell us you love us and we'll let you in. But sorry, I just got off. What am I talking about?
I got so excited.
Oh, right, okay, so my project. So we're in a weird situation, right? All these states have created this power, this thing. We're not on the books as an organization. We're not on the books as a nonprofit. And so what do you do, right? So do you form a caucus? Do you join and absorb into the union? Do you stay outside and become a watchdog party? Do you blank? I don't know. So I think part of why I want to put that out there is we're looking for information. And if anybody has ideas, we are open and willing to learn. And we're actually doing book studies right now, book clubs, and we're learning about what we could do. But one thing in Arizona that's very hard to understand is that we are more powerful than the union right now. We are. And what do we do with this? We don't want to absorb into the union. Why would we give up all of our power like that? We wouldn't. You know what I mean? And so people are like, well, we should just join. No. I don't think that's the right angle. And so what do you do? If you're a caucus, then are you working alongside? Are you doing your own? So I don't have the answer. If anybody out there does, come talk to me. I need some help. But I think we're in a unique position, especially with this. We have a grand opportunity here to seize upon this historic moment to create some sort of nationwide movement, a labor movement, and teachers are the key. And I think you went first, so maybe you know what to do with us. Or maybe we can work together to figure out what we collectively all do. And once more people are on deck, like California or whoever else is on deck, and they start uprising as well, we can have a model to help those people along. So I don't have the answer. I hope we can all maybe figure that out together. I don't know.
I wanted to say that we now have a voice and a platform, and we know how to use it. Where in the past, teachers have always been passive and afraid of retaliation, losing your job, being suspended, being embarrassed, all those things going before the Educational Professional Standards Board, you know, having to go through training, being suspended, all those things. We're not afraid of that now. Bring it on. We now consider ourselves to be part of a national movement. We're going to be looking to you. We are going to be open. You can reach us at any time. We have platforms. We're learning from our colleagues in other states. We have a new president in Oakland that we feel like we can call whenever we need to. And if we have a question, I believe even with the people sitting here, we have who to call for what. Because if I call Rebecca, if I call Tia, they know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. So now we're the new generation, and we are going to fight. You're going to see a lot of teachers on the ballot. We're going to remember in November, and you know, we're not backing down.
Okay, there was a question, and you mentioned retaliation. Just to be clarified, do you anticipate any retaliation, and are individual activists experiencing unsatisfactory evaluations?
I'm going to answer real quick. We do expect retaliation, but we're not afraid of it. Because there are organizations that we can go to say, this is what they're trying to do to us. We're in the fight to fight, and we're not, like I said, backing down. You know, fire me from, well, you can't fire me because I'm retired. Can't take my pension. So the only thing you can do is maybe talk about me, but I can talk back too.
Just quickly, I would say know your leverage. So like we had 727 vacancies and we never have enough subs and, you know, we're always taking on other teachers' kids in order to make sure that they're covered. And so know that, you know, and recognize that and use that and, you know, talking about, and then that goes into retaliation because, you know, what fear do you have if you're all going out together? They ain't gonna fire you, they can't replace you whenever you take a sick day.
I'm gonna echo that real quick because we had 2,000 vacancies in Arizona. So that's fuel for the fire. There's nothing you can do. So we have this right-wing think tank called the Goldwater Institute that's trying to sue people. That never came to fruition. We had some conservative districts threaten to fine us $5,000 for wearing Red for Ed shirts. That never happened. So these scare tactics were just there to scare, and once we called BS on them, nothing happened. And even our superintendent of public instruction got on the news and said teachers should go back to work, or there could be, you can have your certificate revoked. Nothing ever happened. They were all scare tactics, and we weren't afraid, and we called your bluff. So that's that.
Okay, and this will be the last two questions, and then we'll continue. And this is the first one is to us in California. Has any thought been given to making union contracts throughout California end on the same day, so we could do a one strike statewide? And another question, there's been a bipartisan attack on education from the federal level on down. Why aren't the unions organizing a national strike against DeVos charter schools vouchers? So talk about the statewide and national. I just want to speak for California that we did form this past over a year, a California Alliance for for community schools. I'm so used to saying charter schools, right? California Alliance for Community Schools, and it is comprised of the 8 largest unions in California who have come together because we found out we're bargaining at the same time, basically. So we come with a joint platform that we all reinforce, such as lower class sizes and more funding for public schools and community school model that we're all investing in and pushing. So we had 5 demands. Parent community engagement as another one. And then we also have our individual platforms. So we've been supporting each other in our individual bargaining, coming together on the universal ones that we agree on. But we found that it's very hard to actually coordinate because some locals have already signed contracts, right? Because we do it at different times. The actual result happens at different times. So it's very challenging to try to have one action, one strike, because we found out, again, that we're all in different places when it comes down to it. But we're trying to work together as much as we can.
And also, I'd like to address that, listening to Tia and Barbara, I'm learning that the community is an important part in this. So we have a coalition of labor, but that includes community. So we really need to listen to parents, be a part of the community, and also not just support our demands, but our demands are for better schools that will make better communities. So the community demands are our demands, and that's what it takes to win. And also learning from Rebecca and Nicole, just about the importance of building power, rank and file at the site, escalating actions. That's another lesson to learn as we build this movement.
I just want to say, support your community social justice organizations. they may not be in the classroom, but they have a ear to what's going on. And don't be afraid to go to your community. I don't know if you have Metro Council meetings or aldermen or whatever, but go there and speak up. And speak up for your children. And do not let the government tell you, and when I say government, I think I'm speaking about the governor or whoever it is that has backlash and tries to hold you down, your education associations. Speak up at those meetings. Let your voices be heard. And every time the doors open, show up. Because they have got to listen, and at some point, we're going to get what we want to better educate our children.
Okay, before we go to our call for action, I would like for the event volunteers and organizing committee to stand up, to be acknowledged for the hard work that took place to have this event. And again, a round of applause for our guests for providing some very important lessons. And before we go, make sure that you have signed in the sign-in sheets, because as you heard from our speakers, we are building a statewide movement, we are building a nationwide movement, and we know that it takes collective power from the ground up to win the schools that our students deserve. And also, as workers, we have, with the power of work stoppage, we have the power to win for our students. So it is very important that we stay connected, that we will be convening in the fall a community town hall. It'll be Oakland and Bay Area educators